Welcome to the Women Living Well After 50 podcast. I'm Sulon Carrick and I'm passionate about inspiring, motivating, supporting and informing women over 50 to embrace this exciting time of life. Health and wellness in mind, body and spirit are the foundations for living well, but there is so much more to a life well lived. Each week, through conversations with my guests, I'll be presenting topics that will help us all to live well and enjoy life. So join me as we discover new ways to become women living well after 50. Are you ready to start living? What are you waiting for? Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of the Women Living Well After 50 podcast. I'm Sulon Carrick and I'm delighted to have you join me for another episode. Now, do you feel that you're mastering every moment? Are you living an audacious life? Have you got time to live the life that you want? Many women struggle with time management, and today my guest is expert time management consultant, Kate Christie. As Australia's top time management expert to clients including Bupa, Westpac, Specsavers, L'Oreal, Women International Security, the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, and the European Union, Kate Christie has taught thousands globally how to save 30 plus precious hours a month in time, and then how to use that in time to design their best lives. And that sounds great, doesn't it? Her presentations are dynamic and engaging, and she inspires audiences with the right strategies and habits to find and harness and better use time. Kate's fifth book is called The Life List, Master Every Moment and Live an Audacious Life. And we're going to be talking about that today, plus other ways that we can live the life that we want and find the time to do that. So let's go and join the conversation. Welcome, Kate Christie. It is so lovely to have you join me here on the Women Living Well After 50 podcast.
I'm so excited to be on your podcast. I found you on Facebook, I think, and you'd put out a post and you were voted, the top podcast. I thought, I need to meet this woman. So delighted to be here.
Well, it is. And thank you for reaching out. I'm excited to meet you because, as I was saying before we started, you are very impressive. And when my listeners hear the introduction, they're going to think, "Wow," But also, I'm excited for you because you're having you are an author, but you're having your fifth book published this coming week. So we're going to be talking about that as well, and about a subject that I'm really passionate about. So, yeah, it's a good way to start the week. So before we get into it, Kate, I just wondered if you could share a little bit of who you are and a little bit about your experience and life experience with the listeners.
Sure. So my name's Kate Christie. I'm a time management and goal setting expert. I am the best-selling author of 5 books. I'm a mum to 3 amazing young adults, I guess they are now. I work with high performing teams and individuals to help them, I guess, to create their own success and to take their success to the next level. Oftentimes when it comes to time, we try and manage it, and I work with my audiences to help them try and invest their time. You need to invest it for the greatest possible return. So that's probably my day-to-day focus. As you said in the introduction, I've got 5 books. The 5th is coming out this week, so it's a nervous excitement this week. And but I love what I do, and I love making a difference. I love impacting my clients and my audiences, and I love helping people design and live their best lives.
Yes, and that's what I think we don't take the time to do. We say we're so busy and we fill our lives with all these things, and then we go, I wish I could be doing this, or this isn't the life I'm happy with. And I must admit, goal setting, I'm actually big on goal setting, and I'm a list girl, and I'm, I love ticking off the list. I love having my goals and my sub goals. But for a lot of people, they think, we know all about that. we don't want to hear about goal setting, but
Mm.
really we're never going to get anywhere if we don't do that basic work first.
100.
So that's right. Yes. So, what I wanted to talk to you about is from the perspective of women over 50, because I know that you work with a lot of corporate clients, but what you have, and in your new book that's coming out, The Life List, Master Every Moment and Live an Audacious Life, which I just love that title.
Thank you.
I think that whatever you do can relate to a woman over 50, whether she has a career, whether she's heading towards retirement, whether she's whatever she's doing in life. I think that this book and your you know advice is going to really help them. They don't have to be a corporate person.
Oh no, not at all. It's this book is targeted at women over 50, probably sort of 45 onwards. It's interesting. I've had a lot of younger women reach out to me and say, well, can we read it too? Hell yeah. Guys can read it too. But I guess the sweet spot was for what some people term a midlife woman. It's probably because that's where I'm at. And I think that it represents a time of such enormous possibility.
Mm.
A time of huge transition and transformation, an opportunity to reinvent ourselves. We have a bit more time on our hands. If we were mums or carers or are mums and carers, our children are probably in the process of breaking up with us. If we weren't or haven't had children, we may have a career or run a business. But again, we have a little bit more time on our hands. And it's about using that time very, very deliberately. Forbes describes women in their midlife as the super consumer, the new super consumer. We are the most educated, healthy, wealthy, active generation of women in our 50s beyond ever. And it's our turn. It's our turn to step into our space. And, we've been nurturing everyone else for such a long time. And I think when you get to this age, this transformative age, it's our opportunity to actually sit down and design what we want the rest of our lives to look like. And I think it's exciting. It's magnificent. I can't wait. And I'm already doing it, right? I'm already living my life list, and I've never been happier.
Well, I'm glad you said that, even 45 or younger women are wanting to read the book, because for so long, I mean, I'll be 66 in a couple of months, or 3 or 4 months' time. And I look back and I look now at women like yourselves and my daughter who's in her early 40s. And I think you all know so much more than what women of my generation did at that time. And I think that we've sort of done, I would say we've done the hard yards there to actually,
100%. You're the trailblazers.
And now I just think it's so wonderful and exciting that what we're talking about today is something that a lot of women want, and they're knowing about it. It's all out there about midlife, and the fact that, to me, midlife crisis, what does that mean anymore?
Oh,
As you said,
I think it's just such a crappy term.
Isn't
It's not a crisis. It's a catalyst. This is an opportunity for us to redesign, reinvent, or do more of what we love. I'm certainly not coming from a place of crisis. I'm coming from a place of curiosity and opportunity, and it's wonderful. And I completely agree with what you've said, Sue. Women of our age are very different to how our mothers were when they were our age, how our grandmothers, lifetimes away from how our grandmothers were at our age. We get to reinvent. We get to actually make this up as we go along. And, I also think about it a lot at the moment. I sort of feel that I'm experiencing what I experienced that summer when I finished university. And you have no responsibility or fewer responsibilities. You've done all the hard slog. You've done, the work, and you've got that beautiful summer before you have to start a proper job. And that's what this moment in my life feels like, except the only difference is that I've got money which I didn't have then. So it's just getting better.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's the great message. As I was saying, even I had some friends and they dreaded turning, well, let's say 50, let's make it that
Yeah,
point.
whatever
They
our
dreaded,
age is. Yeah.
they dreaded turning 50. And when I turned 50, my life changed around. I started running. I've run 3 marathons in my 60s. I started a podcast in my 60s. Life in my 60s was even better than the 50s. And I think that it's like women like you and many others now that are getting out there with that message that, hey, it is an exciting time of life, and you can make the most of it. And for those women that are struggling and thinking, oh, I'm not sure where to start, there's people like you that are helping them discover the ways to do things. And let's face it, we all have the same amount of time. It's what priority we put on the time, and also accepting, as you said, this is our time now, and not feeling guilty about that. I think you say, about it's a call to action for women to start putting themselves first. And of course, in the past, that would have been guilt, can't do that.
And I think even now, a lot of people have said to me, a lot of women have said to me, I feel guilty if I start prioritizing myself. I feel like people might think I'm selfish, and I'm okay with the selfish word. I'm fully embracing it. I'm bloody ready to be selfish. But if you don't like the word, then I think then reframe it and realize how selfless you have been. And it's time to be a little less selfless. It's time to focus a little more on what makes you happy. And if you are that sort of giving, nurturing type of woman, then remember that, when your cup is full, you present as a much better, happier, giving person anyway. So by filling that cup yourself from time to time, it's going to allow you to be even better at turning up and being the nurturer that you love being.
I totally agree with that, because if you're happy, then everyone around you is happy as well, because, you, as you say, you're more willing to give, you're more willing to nurture because you're in a happy place yourself.
You've got your cup's full, so you've got the capacity to give. And I think so many of us operate at a level of depletion where we really have nothing left to give. And so what we're giving then is completely decharging our own batteries, and people are not getting the best version of us, nowhere near the best version of us. So if you can't actually start prioritizing yourself for yourself, then start prioritizing yourself, because it means you're going to turn up better for others.
Yes, I had a guest the other day, a doctor, and she's specializing in functional medicine, and she came up with this analogy in her book about you open up a bank account. So why not open up a health account? And, to live your best life, you exercise, you eat well, you sleep well. These are all the goals, of course. You have good relationships, you have mindfulness. Now, by putting yourself first and making deposits into your health bank, you are, going to be a healthier person, more energy, more able to give. So it's important to make sure that your bank is getting regular deposits.
Love it.
I thought it was great. So, yeah.
So I'm big on depositing in my bank then.
Yeah, me too. I'm probably a millionaire. Not so much in my normal bank account, but maybe in my health account. So that's good. So let's have a little chat about the, time poor. We can all hide behind that, can't we? We're time poor. Haven't got time for that. So what are your thoughts on that? How we can turn it around?
Yeah, so there's two main buckets, if you like, that stop us pursuing our goals. The first is the fear bucket, failure. I fear that I might fail. I fear that I might succeed. I fear that I might upset my family if I prioritize myself. The fear bucket. And then there's the lack bucket. And that's often I don't have time. I don't have the resources. I don't have the money, the wherewithal. So in terms of challenging either of those lack or fear mindsets, the best way to challenge those is to sit down and actually understand and go through a process of understanding what it is you most value in your life. It's a very, very different question to what are your values. So in answering, well, what is it that I most value? It's going to give you a very clear idea of where it is you do and don't want to be spending your time, which is going to allow you to rebalance those priorities. And I talk you through this process in the book of actually working out what it is that you most value. How do you get to that place? And once you're there, then it becomes really easy to say yes and no to all of the many, many requests that come your way. So mine, for example, the things I most value are my kids, my family, my business, and my health and well-being. And so I have designed my day, my week, my month, my year, my 5-year goals around those 3 things. And once you get rid of all the white noise and all of the other demands, you actually find out that you've got all the time in the world. And it's a matter of prioritizing. And I come at it from the perspective of, time is your most precious resource. You've got to start thinking about your time the way you think about your money. So we don't want to manage our time, we want to invest our time. And once you understand what it is you most value, and you understand this concept of where am I going to invest my time for the greatest return, then you actually start to realize that you've got all the time you need, all the time you need.
And I like that point about looking at your values, and because it does then make it easier to accept or decline things in your life. And we all have, I know a lot of women, including myself, have trouble saying no. But then if you come back to that point of, well, what are my values? What's important to me? It should be a lot easier, shouldn't it?
It is a lot easier. You ask the question, when those requests come your way, the first thing you ask is, does it align to what I most value? So an analogy or an example I've always used is, my kids have always been my number one thing that I most value. And so when a request comes your way, if it's to do with your kids and being with your kids, then it becomes a simple yes. But if it's to do with your kids but not really being with them, then it's a no. So, the kids say, they used to say, Mum, come and watch my basketball game. Well, that's a simple yes. But then when the basketball club says, Kate, can you be the treasurer of the basketball committee? Well, that's actually a simple no, because even though it's got to do with my kids, it doesn't involve me spending a lot of time with my kids. Now, if I decide I actually have the time and I want to invest my time in doing something like that, that's brilliant, and I'll do it. But we need to understand the distinction of, am I investing this in the right places? Does it align to what I most value?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because that's where we, a few of us do get stuck, especially if you're a giving person, or you don't have that self-confidence. You feel like, I've got to say yes, or you say yes and then you think to yourself,
then you regret it.
Why did I do that? Why did I say that?
So
I just and then you sort of go on. Because then you get yourself worked up about, I've said yes and now I don't want to do it, but I can't say no. And, it becomes this big drama when if you just said no at the outset.
The emotional investment in that is ridiculous. A couple of simple sort of things to think about when requests come your way. Firstly, kind of pause and don't jump in with an immediate yes. So just pause and let your brain catch up with your mouth, and vice versa. Then instead of just jumping straight into a yes, always have your go-to answer should always be, thank you so much for thinking of me. Let me check my calendar and I'll come back to you. That's just going to buy you time to make a decision as to whether or not the request aligns to what it is you most value. If it does, great, go do it. If it doesn't, then a good way to manage it is just to say, look, thank you so much for the opportunity. Unfortunately, I've got a number of deadlines that I'm working to, but if anything changes, I'll come back to you. It's just a really polite way of saying no. The other thing with
Yes.
no's or the request is you've got to understand there's two different types of requests for your time. The first type is, I want your time right now, Sue. I need you now. That's easy because you can make a very simple judgment and assessment as to whether or not you can invest in that person right now. Where the problem comes in, which you mentioned, is requests for your time in the future, because there's no pain in the present in terms of saying no. Sue, can you do these 10,000 things for me next June? Sure, because there's no pain. But then you get
Yes.
to May, June, and that's when you start to experience the pain.
Mm.
So when it's a forward-facing request for your time, always think, how am I actually going to feel about this when the time arises?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good advice. Now, you've got an A to Z life list. And before we go into that, what's the difference between a life list and a bucket list? Because we all talk about that, especially when you get to, close to retirement. Everyone says, oh, I've got a bucket list I want to tick off, but
Yeah.
what's the difference between those?
So a bucket list is generally a list of everything you want to do before you die. And it's often adventure kind of experiential related. A life list is really different. My life list, or like the concept, I came up with the concept of a life list because it's a list of everything I want to do while I'm still young enough to enjoy it. I don't want to put off living till later, because later
No.
might be too late. So
Yeah.
the life list is what do I want to do now and in the immediate future, in the next year or two, so that I'm actually living this life by design and I'm doing it right now. I'm not putting stuff off to later because life's too short.
Mm, mm. Yes, and it's a bit like having beautiful things, material things like, beautiful china or something like that, and you can't use it because you keep it for good, but good never comes.
That's it. That's
So
it. That's
something just
a
sits in
perfect
the cupboard all
example.
the time, and you
Yeah.
think, oh, you never use it. You just look at it and you go, oh, that's so beautiful. And you just, I'll wait till, I'll leave it for good, and you just
What
never
a
get round to
waste.
using it. Yeah, yeah. So I
And that's
don't now. I just pull out all the stuff
put
and,
it out. And it's the same
and
with the life
enjoy it.
list. Yep, it's do it now. Enjoy it now. Don't put it off till later because later might be too late.
Yeah, which brings me, we're sort of going all over circles here, but, with this book, or what actually drove you to write the life list? Because I think
Yeah,
sometimes, as I just said, sorry to interrupt you there, but we probably know what we want to do or things like that, but we don't take the time out to actually, really reflect on it. So, what drove you to write this book?
yeah. So look, the book really arose out of tragedy. My ex-husband, the father of our amazing kids, as we came into COVID, March 2020, I think, was when COVID kind of all, we all
Mm,
started getting locked down. And in April 2020, Dan was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And
mm,
within 11 months, he'd passed away. And he was only 54. And going through that process of losing him and helping my children deal with the loss of him, watching my children grieve their dad even before he'd gone, and that whole process of death and grief were absolutely horrific. My kids were all young or older teenagers, very young adults, and that it was an absolute shit show. So I can't describe it in any other better language than it was the hardest, most
mm,
heartbreaking experience of my life.
mm,
And coming through that and out of that, obviously it takes you to a place of very deep reflection, both in terms of my marriage, in terms of the breakdown of my marriage, in terms of the co-parenting we were doing, then his illness, and then losing him. And I guess, came to this conclusion that life's too short. And of course it's too short, but this was a really brutal slap across the face. And
mm,
it made me realize very strongly, with great definiteness that I didn't want to put off living till later, that I wanted to do and design and live an absolutely magnificent life while I was still young enough to live it. And so about 9 months, oh no, not even that, probably 6 months after he'd passed away, I wrote an article for CEO World magazine. I'm an opinion columnist for them, and I tend to write about productivity and time management, women in business. And I wrote an article for them basically saying, you know, we've had this loss and I'm going to live very, very differently. And here's what my list looks like. And I didn't actually think they'd publish it because it's not, it wasn't an opinion piece and it wasn't on my area of expertise. And within hours of me sending it to America, it had hit their front page. And
Wow.
it just created such ripples. And I had so many people from all around the world writing to me, firstly expressing their condolences, which was lovely. You know, I didn't know these people, but then saying, I love this idea of a life list. Can I use your life list? Can I borrow this? Can I steal this? Can I create a life list? And I just realized that I'd kind of tapped into something where I could genuinely help others and be, I guess, of service to others with this idea that seemed to have created a spark. And so I then probably, 10 months later, I pitched the idea to my publisher. They loved the idea. And I sat down, I set myself the goal of writing 30,000 words in 30 days. I ended up writing about 60,000 words in about 45 days. And, the book just literally poured out of me. And, the life list, it was cathartic to write it because it took me through a process, I guess, I hadn't taken myself through from the breakdown of my marriage onwards. It was also kind of joyful. And I guess the other thing that it is that it's going to hold me to account. So, I've put it out there and I've got my A to Z life list. I've got to actually bloody do this stuff now.
Yeah. So with that A to Z life list, is it just A to Z or how have you come up with your list?
So I guess the first thing about the life list or a life list to understand is it's not locked in concrete. You can take things off it, you can add things to it. It's an evolving list. It's going to evolve as you evolve. I had various iterations of the life list and had started implementing things right from when I wrote that first article. I hiked the Larapinta Trail. I've been cold water swimming every single day for about 18 months,
Oh, wow.
So I've already sort of started ticking off these big goals. But then I just thought, because I guess I'm a time management expert and I loved the idea of processes and frameworks. I think the A to Z, it really appealed to me because it allowed me to think beyond just the obvious. In terms of, I want to climb a mountain, kind of obvious. It really stretched me to think, what are all the things I want to do? And I overlaid that then with this idea that we have 7 life list chapters. So your life list shouldn't just be about adventure and travel. It can be, obviously, if that's all you want to do, then knock yourself out. But I talk about, having goals that relate to your relationships, to your health, to your wealth, to your lifestyle, to the environment, to your giving. How are you going to give back all of this incredible knowledge you've accumulated over your life? So it touches on all the aspects of my life that were most important to me. And then I brought them together in this A to Z idea.
That sounds really good. And as I was listening to you, then I was thinking, first of all, you need to start retreats for people to come and do that, because I think that people don't stop, but you have to invest your time into your time list, into your life list, so that you will be able to do all the things that you'd like to do rather than keep putting them off.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do have one-on-one coaching for the life list. I've got group coaching programs for the life list. And I've just recently announced that I'm partnering with Surf Getaways, which is a brilliant Australian company that is surfing for women, being taught by women. And I'm partnering with them for a retreat in Bali at the end of August.
Fabulous.
we're going to learn to surf, and I'm going to teach all the women how to create their own life list.
Oh, wow. That would be a great experience, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that could be something else on your list that you're ticking
It's
off
on my
anyway.
list, but yeah, surfing's on my list. So I'm making this stuff happen. You've got to actively make it happen. You know, there's two parts to the process. There's the design stage where you design your life list, and then there's the doing stage where you actually implement, because unless you implement, then it's just a list. Anyone can have a list.
Yes.
But you actually have to do it. You've got to live it.
That's right. And as I said to you before, I'm a list girl, so this will work for me. I'm getting the book as soon as it's out, I can tell you, and I'll be working and creating my life list. But, you know, I love that feeling of ticking things off and achieving things. But I also like the fact that you're saying it's not just about travel, which is what a lot of us would automatically think of, you know, oh, I want to go here, I want to go there. But there's so much more. You know, my website and everything is called Women Living Well After 50. It's not just about health, and it's not just about travel. It's, you know, there's so many things to go into living life well. And so that's how you are with the life list. You're saying, you know, it's got all these different categories that we should be looking at. Now,
absolutely.
Yeah. Now, I in part 4, because I don't want to give too much away, we're all going to buy the book and read it, and we're going to get in touch with you to give us some, you know, coaching on it. But you have a yes month every year. Because I've just gone before saying, you know, we should be learning to say no. So what's the yes month?
I'm really, really good at saying no these days. So much so that I thought I had to challenge myself to having a yes month. And it was around me saying yes to opportunities that came my way that I would automatically say no to. Because I'm a homebody. I love curling up on my favorite chair with my favorite book and a hot chocolate and burning some incense and having the music playing. And I'm, you know, in heaven. So the yes month was me deliberately pushing myself out of my comfort zone, and I had to say yes to the opportunities that came my way for a whole month. I made 2 mistakes. The first was I told my girlfriends about it, so they just abused it to the nth degree. The second thing was that I coincided it with when we were going to be in Bali. I was in Bali with my kids for 2 weeks of the yes month. And so, you know, they had me doing the most outrageous, crazy stuff. But look, the yes month was brilliant and life affirming and terrifying and horrific. And it was literally every emotion that you can have. You know, I went speed dating, which was just awful, but hilarious. I found myself in the middle of a Balinese jungle, walking up a river with a guide and my daughter and no one else around, and he was playing a handmade whittled flute, and there were snakes swimming through the water. I took the kids, we went to a water park, and I found myself, I said I'd go on every single ride. So I was, you know, the first ride they took me on was this one, which was, you know, like 200 meters in the air, and you got into this enclosed, it was like a coffin, like a perspex coffin, where you're standing upright and the water's streaming down on you, and this voice sort of counts you down from 5, and then the floor drops out and you just plunge. And so, you know, I did all of this crazy stuff. I went dancing. I took my nephews bowling. They jumped onto the idea. And look, I had this beautiful, magnificent month, and it was wonderful. I was relieved when it was over because I was exhausted, but I'm signing up for it again. I'm going to do it again this year because it got me way outside my comfort zone, and it was just good for my soul.
Yes. Yeah. And probably you surprise yourself with what you can do sometimes, don't you? You know, sometimes you've got all these limiting beliefs, and like you're talking about that water slide thing, and my heart's dropping as the floor's going up. Oh my goodness. Yeah. But afterwards you probably went, yes, I've done that. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of my girlfriends calls it type 2 fun. That, you know, you hate it when it's on, but like later on you're like, yeah, So great.
I
So
love that.
I had a
Yeah.
bit of type 2 fun.
Oh, well, that sounds great. Now, look, I do have one more question, but before we get to that, because it's a question I ask all of my guests, let's talk about your book. Now, it's coming out this week, and I will
Mm-hmm.
be putting the show notes, in the show notes, the links to where they can, everyone can look for it. But I'm assuming that it would be on places like Amazon and all of that as well.
Yes, yep. Amazon, Booktopia. It's going to be in Target. In the US, it's going to be in Barnes and Noble. Just Google it with my
Yeah.
name, and it'll come up. Go to your local bookstore and demand that they get it into stock. They
Yes.
usually will if they have people asking for it. So yeah, available everywhere.
Yeah, okay. No, that sounds good, and congratulations on it. It's a
Thank
very
you.
exciting thing, and I love the idea. As I said, I'll be definitely making sure I get a copy because it's not too late. I might be 66 this year, but it's never too late to start something. So
No, it's
I
not.
keep I keep teaching myself that.
Oh, for sure. And I was talking to Belinda Bradford, who's the CEO of Surf Getaways, about the retreat we're running. And their most prolific client is 73. She's a
Yeah,
73-year-old
wow.
widow, and she's been on 4 or 5 surf getaway trips. And she said to Belinda, look, I could either be in a nursing home sitting waiting to die, or I could be doing this. And
Yes.
she's living her absolute best life. And isn't that what we all want?
Exactly, exactly. And it's just sometimes that fear that's holding us back, or someone at 73, you'd have people saying to her, well, what do you want to do that for? You're going to hurt yourself, or this or that, instead of just forgetting about the age and thinking, well, what do I want to do? That's how I approach things. I don't really put myself in an age category. If I want
No.
to do something, I'll give it a try, because otherwise, once you say I'm too old, you are. You've just totally um, narrowed your world by so much, and you miss out on so much hiding behind that number.
Yeah.
And if you're in good health, and as we said before, we're in much better places than what our mums were or our grandmothers were,
Mm.
and we're living longer, we're more energetic, so go for it.
Very much so.
Yeah. So my last question to you is, what does being a woman living well mean to you?
Oh, I love that question. Being a woman living well to me means living a life that I've designed that is very much revolving around what I most value. So, my kids, my business, my health, pushing myself outside of my boundaries, surrounding myself with love and joy. And probably the most important thing for me is laughter, and laughing every day and being around people who really make me laugh. That's what being a woman living well means for me.
I love that answer. I've had well over 100 guests in the podcast, and everyone has a different answer. Some might be a little bit similar. I've never had anyone talking about laughter, and that's just so important. I know for myself, I'm not a really laugh out person. You know how people have that hearty laugh and they
Yeah,
laugh
I've got one of
easily?
those.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah.
But you do need to have laughter in your life. It's just so good for you. So surrounding yourself with people that make you laugh,
Mm,
I mean, they have laughing groups, don't they, for
they
health and
do.
well-being.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's got to be something in that.
Yeah.
So we're coming to the end now, Kate. I could talk to you forever, but you are so busy and you've given me your time today, which is great. Is there anything else you'd like to leave us with before we go today?
Yeah, look, I think the last thing would be that um, it's important to live your life to the full. Um, please go and design what your perfect life looks like. You don't have to be outrageous or ridiculous or audacious. What is on my life list will be very different to what's on your life list. But have a list and celebrate it, support your friends in their lists, be each other's cheer squads, and really, make the most of the fact that as far as we know, we only live once. So let's make it great.
Yeah, that's great. And just then, as you were saying that, that's such a special message. And I probably should have mentioned it before, but um, let's not compare our lists with other people, because this is our own personal list. What's right for us, like what you're doing on your list, might not be right for me. So we have to not try to compare and go, oh, Kate's list is just so fantastic and look at what she's doing. But if I look at some of them, I'd probably think, well, that wouldn't really bring me joy. And if someone looked at my list, they'd probably say that, you know, the same thing. So I think it's important not to compare ourselves with other people.
Very, very important. This is about your life. It's not about your best friend's life or your sister's life or your mother's life or your daughter's life or your neighbour's life. Don't let other people judge you. This is your life.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's a great point to finish on. So thank you so much for being my guest today and giving me your time, Kate. It's been lovely chatting to you. And good luck with the book. And as I said, I will be putting all of that in the show notes and giving it a plug in the Facebook group and in social media for you as well. So
Thank you. That's wonderful.
hopefully it's going to be a bestseller.
Thanks so much, Sue.
Well, it was wonderful to chat to Kate today about her new book, Master Every Moment and Live an Audacious Life, about making our life list and making it count. So I hope that you've enjoyed the conversation. I know I did, and I'm feeling inspired to go and start work on my list now. So if you have, I'd love you to leave me a comment or a like, and also share this with a friend, because I know that they will definitely get something out of it, because living our life to the full is the best thing that we can do. So that's all for this episode. Until next time, I want you to remember to live well, enjoy life, and most of all, be a woman living life your way. Bye for now.